It happened in October last year. I was living alone in a small two-bedroom house just outside Portland, Oregon. I'd only been there for about 3 months. It was cheap, quiet, and came with a decent-sized backyard, so I took it without thinking too much. Halloween was coming up, and you could feel it in the air. Cold evenings, pumpkin displays, fake cobwebs, and that orange tint in every window. I wasn't really a Halloween guy, but my neighbors were. Almost every house on the block had some kind of decoration, inflatable ghosts, hanging skeletons, and motion sensors that screamed when you walked by. My neighbor across the street, an old guy named Mr. Dalton, had the most decorations. He'd covered his lawn with fake tombstones, each with a flickering candle in front. It looked creepy, but in a fun, harmless way. That night, October 28th, 3 days before Halloween, something strange happened. It was around 11:30 p.m. I'd just finished watching a movie and was about to head to bed when I heard a soft knock on my front door. Not loud, not urgent, just patient. At first I thought it was my imagination, or maybe a branch hitting the porch in the wind, but then it came again. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, rhythmic. I checked the time again, 11:32. Nobody knocks that late, especially in a quiet neighborhood like mine. I went to the peephole, but the porch light was dim. I could only make out a dark shape standing just outside the door, tall, still, facing me. For a second, I thought it might be one of the neighborhood teens pulling a Halloween prank, so I called out, "Hey, who's there?" No answer. Just silence. Then the figure tilted its head slightly, like it was listening to me through the door. That movement sent a chill straight down my spine. I didn't open the door. Instead, I quietly turned off the living room light, hoping whoever it was would think no one was home. But the knocking continued. Knock, knock, knock. Same rhythm, same patience. After maybe 30 seconds, it stopped. I waited another full minute before peeking through the peephole again, but the porch was empty. I told myself it was probably some drunk kid or maybe someone looking for the wrong house. But deep down, something about it felt off. The knock had been too calm, too deliberate. I checked the porch camera the next morning. Nothing. The motion sensor hadn't even triggered. The next night, October 29th, the same thing happened, but this time it was around 1 a.m. Again, 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I looked through the peephole, but this time I saw a mask. The kind of plain white face mask you find at party stores. No color, no expression. Just 2 hollow eye holes staring directly at my door. I froze. Whoever it was didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there. I whispered, "I'm calling the cops," even though I wasn't sure if they could hear me. And right after I said that, the person turned his head slowly to the left, then stepped out of view. By the time the police arrived, there was no one. They looked around, checked my porch, even the backyard. Nothing. The officer said it was probably a prank, maybe someone from a few streets over. I wanted to believe that. But when I reviewed my porch camera again the next day, it showed a glitch, a few seconds of static exactly at the time of the knocking, as if something had interfered with it. The following evening, October 30th, I stayed up late intentionally, hoping to catch whoever it was. Around midnight, I turned off all the lights and sat near the window with the blinds slightly open. I kept the porch light on this time, just enough to see clearly. At 12:47 a.m., I saw him. Standing in the middle of the street, the same figure in the white mask, staring directly at my house. He wasn't moving, just standing there under the streetlight, facing me. For a second, I thought it might be Mr. Dalton, but he wasn't that tall. Then, after maybe 30 seconds, he walked slowly across the street and disappeared behind Mr. Dalton's fence. I didn't see him again that night, but around 3 a.m., I woke up to the faint sound of footsteps outside my bedroom window. Not on gravel, on grass. Slow, deliberate steps, circling the house. I wanted to look, but I couldn't move. Every instinct screamed at me to stay still. After a minute, the footsteps stopped, and then I heard a whisper right outside my window. Too low to make out the words, but close enough that I could hear the breath behind it. I stayed awake till dawn. That morning, I noticed something I'd missed before. Muddy handprints on the side of my window, like someone had been pressing their palms against the glass from outside. Each handprint was smudged, but the strange thing was, they were child-sized. That detail scared me more than anything else, because the figure I'd seen the night before was tall, definitely adult height. I didn't go to work on October 31st. After what happened the past 3 nights, I just couldn't focus on anything else. The muddy handprints on my bedroom window were still there when I woke up in the morning light, like a reminder that what happened wasn't just a dream. I'd tried convincing myself it was all some Halloween prank, maybe a neighbor's kid, maybe some teenager trying to get attention. But the more I replayed everything in my head, the less it made sense. No kid would stand motionless at someone's door for that long. No prankster would whisper outside a window at 3 a.m. I spent most of that morning cleaning the porch and checking every camera angle again. But every clip from the last 3 nights had static or corruption exactly during the moments I'd seen him. Like he somehow knew when the camera was watching. By evening, the neighborhood had transformed. Kids were out in costumes, parents chatting, houses glowing with orange lights. It was Halloween night, the kind of night that used to feel cozy and harmless. But to me, everything felt off. Like there was a layer of tension hiding behind the laughter. I decided to stay home and keep the lights dim. I'd hand out a little candy, maybe watch a movie, and just ride the night out. Around 7 p.m., a group of little kids came by. Witches, zombies, a tiny Batman. I gave them candy, smiled, and tried to act normal. But one of the kids, a little girl in a red hood, stopped on the porch and pointed at my yard. She asked, "Is that your friend?" I followed her gaze. At the far end of my yard, half hidden behind the oak tree, was a tall shape, still, watching. The porch light barely reached that far, but I could make out a white mask. I dropped the candy bowl. By the time I stepped off the porch, the figure was gone. The little girl just giggled, thinking I was part of some Halloween trick. She waved and ran off with her friends, but I wasn't smiling. I called the police again around 8:30, told them someone had been lurking near my house for several nights. They said they'd send a patrol car, but no one ever showed up. By 10 p.m., the streets had gone quiet. The laughter faded. The houses started turning their porch lights off one by one. And that's when I heard it again. Knock, Knock? Knock? 3 slow, patient knocks, just like before. This time, though, they didn't come from the front door. They came from the back door, the one that leads directly into my kitchen. I froze mid-step. The only light on in the house was from the small lamp in the living room, flickering slightly. I turned toward the sound, my heartbeat hammering in my ears. Knock. 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 Whoever it was, they knew the house layout. They'd gone around to the back this time. I grabbed the flashlight and crept toward the kitchen. The blinds on the back door window were half open, so I could see a little of what was outside. And what I saw made me stop breathing. The white masked man was right there, inches from the glass, head tilted like before. But now I could see more. He was wearing a dark, tattered suit, and his mask was cracked down the left side, showing part of his skin underneath. His mouth, what little I could see through the break, was twisted into something that didn't look human. I wanted to scream, but the sound just died in my throat. He didn't move, didn't knock again, just stared, until I turned the flashlight directly on him. That's when he stepped backward, and I swear to God, it looked like he glided instead of walking. Then he disappeared into the darkness. I called 911 again, whispering so he wouldn't hear me. The operator stayed on the line, telling me to lock myself in a room. I went to my bedroom, locked the door, turned off the lights, and waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then, footsteps. Not outside. Inside. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. They were coming from the kitchen. The operator kept asking if I was safe, but I couldn't even answer. I just listened, frozen, as the steps moved closer down the hall. Then they stopped, right outside my bedroom door. I pressed my ear against the wood, trying not to make a sound. And then came a whisper. "You opened the door for me last year." I had no idea what that meant. I hadn't lived here last year. I stayed silent. Then the whisper came again, softer this time. "You don't remember me, do you?" I stumbled backward, trying to grab something to defend myself, but before I could reach for anything, I heard the distant sound of sirens approaching. The footsteps stopped. By the time the police kicked the door open, there was no one. Every window was locked, every door bolted from the inside. The back door, the one I'd seen him through, was still locked too, from my side. No sign of forced entry. The cops checked every corner, but found nothing. One of the officers even asked if I might have been dreaming. I showed them the handprints on the window, but when we went to look, they were gone. Not just faded, completely wiped clean. That night, I didn't sleep. And around 4 a.m., while I sat on the couch trying to calm down, I heard something that made my blood turn to ice. From somewhere deep inside the house, faint, distant, came the sound of 3 soft knocks. Knock, knock, knock. 3 soft hits, like someone was on the other side, trapped between the studs and insulation, trying to get out. I remember whispering to myself, "There's no way someone's inside the wall." But the knocks kept coming, steady, patient, as if whoever it was knew I was listening. Finally, I grabbed a kitchen knife and went room to room, checking every vent, every crawl space, every inch of that house. Nothing. By sunrise, the knocking had stopped. I called a handyman that morning, told him I was hearing noises in the walls. He looked at me like I was crazy, but agreed to take a look. When he cut open a small section near the baseboard in the hallway, we both froze. Behind the drywall, buried between the studs, was an old wooden mask. Cracked, painted white, almost identical to the one I'd seen on the man's face. The handyman stepped back immediately. He said, "That thing's gotta be from some old Halloween decoration or something," half joking, but he didn't sound convinced. I told him to take it out. When he did, a thin gust of cold air came from inside the wall, cold enough that I could see my breath. And for a split second, I thought I heard a voice in that draft. It said my name. I threw the mask into a garbage bag, sealed it tight, and left it outside for pickup. That evening, the air in the house felt different, heavy, thick, like static. Every sound echoed strangely, as if the walls were listening. I told myself it was just nerves, but around 11 p.m., the temperature dropped again. Then my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my porch camera. Motion detected. I opened the feed, and there he was. The man in the white mask, standing at the curb, facing my house. Only this time, he was holding something. A black garbage bag. The same kind I'd used that morning. I froze, staring at the screen, not even blinking. He dropped the bag on the curb, then turned slowly toward the camera. And that's when I realized his mask was gone. His face was pale, sunken, the skin stretched tight like paper. His eyes were hollow, literally hollow, like there was nothing behind them. He leaned closer to the camera, so close that his lips almost brushed the lens, and whispered something that made my whole body lock up. "You can't throw me away again." Then the feed cut out, static, just like before. I ran to the window, but the street was empty. No man, no bag. When I checked the curb the next morning, there was a bag there, but not the one I'd left. Inside it were old photographs, grainy, black and white. Each photo showed a different family standing in front of my house. The same porch, the same window, different faces. Every picture was labeled with a year written in pencil on the back. 1957, 1963, 1971, 1985, 1999, and on the last one, the most recent, dated 2022, the family was gone. The photo showed just the house, empty, except for one detail. In the corner of the porch, barely visible, was a tall man wearing a cracked white mask. That night, I packed what I could and drove out. I didn't even lock the door behind me. For a while, I tried to convince myself it was some elaborate prank. Maybe the previous tenant left something weird in the wall. Maybe some neighbor was playing a sick joke. But last week, I got an email from the realtor who helped me rent the place. She said the new tenants had moved in a few months ago, a young couple. Everything was fine until last weekend. She said they'd called her terrified because someone kept knocking on their back door at night. 3 slow, patient knocks. Knock, knock, knock. And here's the part that really gets to me. When she emailed me, she attached a photo, a still image from their new porch camera. The timestamp said, October 31st, 2024, almost exactly 1 year after my experience. The figure standing on their porch was tall, wearing black, and in his left hand, he was holding a mask, a plain, cracked, white mask.